Hey y'all, I'm Arthur. I'm a big and tall white guy with way too much red hair and identify as neurodivergent. And I am going to continue sharing this project I'm working on. Um, it's not going to be sushi yet, and it might not be until the next one. But you'll see where I'm getting at. Anyway, so I was just continuing along, getting the rest of the thing not set up. And I gotta say, it's been a couple weeks since I started recording before I've come back to look at this. And now, at where I am in Space Age, like all of this stuff was a lot more trivial than I thought. So I'm going to kind of cut through a lot more of the beginning stages here. Again, if you are newer to Factorio and you want to learn, I'm not the person to learn from. I've got over 1,000 hours in this game, but that does not mean I, you know, have any kind of expertise at it. If anything, I think I'm actually relatively behind the curve on a lot of the, uh, appropriate strategies. I'm just having fun. But anyway, if you want to learn something, I don't know, I gotta say, I love Dosh's videos. I've always found them informative, both from like a beginning perspective as well as advanced as your brain can take. But anyway, so I'm gonna light speed through a couple of these steps. So first, I am finishing up the second and third sciences. I'm throwing in a military science in there, so I can get that knocked up and knocked out of the way, so that we can quickly move ahead. Now, as a reminder, I am going for achievements with this one. So I can't blow up a biter nest until I have artillery. And the way I'm doing that is the only change I made to the default settings is that I expanded the starter territory out to the maximum so that the biters spawn really far away, and that gave me time to kind of turtle up. The other one I'm going for that is complicated is no advanced sciences until I do a planetary one, to not use any solar or lasers until I've launched a rocket. I'm doing Lazy Bastard, which means I can't handcraft until I launch a rocket. And no advanced logistics until I think that's also until I use a planetary science. So anyway, so let's skip ahead a little bit. Um, Here you can see I am uh, putting together a what you call it, the suit and everything. Again, it's like I can't handcraft anything. I guess I could have handcrafted one item, but it doesn't really matter. It's really easy to just kind of plop down an assembler just for a single use item and then just pick it back up again. So I gotta say, I've never played Lazy Bastard. I'm always been a handcrafter, but I think this really taught me how to play the game better. And instead of handcrafting the same stuff over and over again, the Lazy Bastard challenge really did teach me that I should just be setting something up to make items, especially when they're more complicated or take a long time to handcraft. So, uh, it's always fun to explore new ways to play, even 1,000 hours in. All right, and biters have started to test the walls a bit, so I'm just going to go ahead and put in a much more permanent solution now, and start loading up a bunch of flamethrowers. And this is going to be a recurring theme of just slapping down flamethrower turrets and more complicated walls, until I kind of reach an equilibrium. I don't know much about biter evolution. I gotta say, like I've never really understood the biter stuff. I've never really participated much in the combat side of this game. And again, that's why I like this achievement, because it fits my playstyle already of just kind of walling up, and then by the time I need to expand outside of my starter patches, I'm already ready to steamroll the biters without doing any of the early game back and forth because it's just not my speed. I'm only realizing now that I don't have any of the game audio on these clips, so sorry about that. But pew pew pew, psh, ah! Alright, so I got all the sciences set up that we're going to get until we get into space. We've got speed and proficiency modules. Probably make a couple of productivity modules. Efficiency, I don't know. I put productivity in everything. Now, I come to find out that productivity becomes trivial later in the game. It's a surprising change, but at least for now, I'm being very conservative with novice materials. At the end of the day, I don't want to have to expand out beyond the walls, and I do have fairly I wouldn't say limited, like I've got some healthy patches in my big area, but I don't know how long it's going to take me to get planetary science figured out. I've been very, very careful not to spoil any of the game for myself. I'm an avid lurker on the Factorio subreddit, and so I gotta say, the community's been good at spoiler marking and everything, so I have a little bit of the meta seeped into my subconscious, but just enough for me to anticipate what's coming, and nothing I'm not going to learn by going through the Factoripedia or whatever the built-in wiki is called. But I did make sure that I completely didn't look at any builds or any puzzle solutions. Not that I'm good at copying those anyway. All the blueprints you'll see, I'll develop myself. I am going to be bringing in my sushi-belt mixer blueprint from my previous build, but that's the only blueprint I'm going to be importing in. And you'll see what that looks like in a bit. But yeah, got oil processing set up, got all the sciences set up. Now it's just a matter of getting to the rocket. Alright, kind of expanded this out a bit more, producing some of the more complicated items. Again, lazy bastard really teaching me how to make proper production volume and kind of build the pieces of the factory itself at scale. Alright, making some rocket fuel, making some solid fuel, doing advanced oil processing. It's coming along. I always chain it back down to petroleum using some simple circuitry and the cracking or what have you. I don't know if this is the optimal way to do it, but this is the best way I've found to make sure that I never run out of one thing or another, right? And so as I scale, depending on the needs, because, again, I know there's science to this, people know the ratios and stuff. I never learned those, so I just do it by the natural science way of if it runs out, make more of it. But this way I can scale those growths the way I want to do it. Alright, hand fed all the materials in, and we finally got ourselves a rocket silo. And it's funny because, again, I play a lot of this, but it's usually modded, so I very rarely play vanilla of any kind. And just kind of remembering back to this being the end of the game, and suddenly it's just really getting started, is very exciting. Alright, let's give it a whirl. step for fish, one giant leap for me. Ayy. Not too shabby. Hey, I actually got a time one. I was definitely not rushing. Alright, so now I need to make a starter platform. And even though I got the Lazy Bastard achievement, I gotta say, I am going to do my best not to handcraft too much. In fact, I have a feeling we're not going to be using my character at all very much in the future. Getting the bots set up. The way I do it, I just keep an eye on demand. So I have it connected directly to the RoboPort, and it reads, and if there's no available robots, that means I haven't built enough yet. And so in the beginning, you know, it'll kind of scale, but as time goes on, I'm not going to end up making like 500,000 probably, but I won't be, you know, for want of them either. And of course, adding all those bots has led to complete catastrophic power failure. So I need more coal, so I finally get to start playing with the new trains. Again, 1,000, actually it's more like 1,500 hours in Factorio. I am not very good at trains. I know the very, very basics of, what is it? Chain in, rail out, right? But I just never really got the hang of them. I've almost always made belt bases or used trains just to bring stuff in from outposts, and just had dedicated trains for each of those. I've never mega based before. I've never done city blocks or anything like that. And it's because I've been intimidated by trains. But with 2.0, I was really excited to start playing around with them, and so I do. So this design is going to improve as I go, but essentially the idea is for any of the pickup stations, they're all going to have the same name, and they're going to be set to make sure that there's actually some content in them to be activated. Then I'm going to set up little weight depots, and the drop off is also going to be turning on and off based on if there's any content in them. But then I really, really am excited to get to play around with kind of like these dynamic train systems. And what it ends up being, I get a couple iterations into this, but it's going to be first detecting if any of the delivery stations are available, which means that they need more ore because the box has gone down the threshold, the container. And then that will tell a train to go and load up on that ore. Now, all it's going to say is load up on this ore because we're out of coal, for instance. But then no matter what that train ends up filling up with, the delivery one will be for everybody using the dynamic system, where it's going to say, okay, if you have this in your cargo, that means you need to go and drop it off at a delivery point. That's going to lead to situations sometimes where maybe they have picked up the ore because the demand was there, but another train already filled it, and so they'll be sitting there with ore. And if that happens, then it'll go and wait at the kind of depot station I'm setting up, which is also going to be where they refuel, and wait until the next demand. And then when that happens, it'll go immediately to the place that's asking for the product that's in its container. And, you know, again, I'm recording this audio well after I've already played for further. You'll see how crazy it kind of gets, but I never really have to expand that out, at least in the point of the game I'm in. And even as squirrely and organically silly as my train lines are going to be, which, by the way, I love how organic I can make the train routes now, and they're not nearly as restricted as they were before. But, you know, that simple little logic ends up scaling with me as far as I've taken it so far. And, you know, coming from always being intimidated by the trains to being able to figure this out without really even needing much of a tutorial, I really just kind of experimented a little bit. I love it. I absolutely love it. Okay, let's see if I can put the proof in the pudding. And sorry for my mouse shaking. I have an optical mouse, and by the way, I'm playing while I'm on planes and hotels and stuff while I travel with Lachi, who I work for. And so sometimes it's not the best user experience. I actually used to have a Steam Deck, and just like a month and a half ago, we were at JFK, and I had this backpack that I just have everything in as we travel. And my backpack wandered off, and NYPD did not want to help. JFK didn't want to help, so now I don't have a Steam Deck. And so instead, I'm playing on my my potato laptop, which again is just evidence of just how powerful Factorio is, and yet how well it's played on even the simplest of work laptops. But no, I love these dynamic trains, and again, I'm not good at the signal side, but from the train logic side, it's just been so fun to play with. And by the way, if you don't know who Lachi is, so Lachi, she's a musician, she's a recording artist. I work with her at RAMPed, which is Recording Artists and Music Professionals with Disabilities. I'm also her business manager. And so, as much as I'm just kind of like an Excel geek, I'm her makeup artist, I'm her stylist, I'm her sighted companion, so I travel with her as she goes to all these crazy events and shows and performances and stuff. So I live quite a rambunctious life. And then after all the glitz and glamour, I just want to kind of sit down and play Factorio for a couple hours in the hotel room, and that's what keeps me going. Made this nice little blueprint that also uses variables so that I can just kind of plop down a chest that filters a particular item, or like a storage chest. So I can always just easily set some item up into feeding into the logistics network, whether I'm picking it up from a belt or directly from an assembler or whatever. And that ends up being really useful throughout the game. Alright, I'm probably going to start wrapping it up here, but yeah. It's been really, really cool and exciting. You can see I've got my train logistics all figured out, and it's just getting a little silly, but it's going to get much, much sillier, I promise. Also starting to use some blueprints. All of these little designs I'm going to be tinkering with as I play. Maybe later, after I'm quite late game and I'm happy with how some of the blueprints turned out, I might share them. I know there's that project of having kind of blueprint designs being shared. But I'm just going to keep expanding this out a little bit, and probably will skip to the next exciting part in the next video of being in space finally and starting to build the sushi base. So until next time, thanks for joining.